Hello friends, welcome to the EduSet network. Today we are going to talk about factors affecting intelligence, and this is our second lecture in this part, as we talked about intelligence in the first one that was yesterday. And for this discussion we have this in the studio Dr. Arvind Mishra, Associate Professor, School of Social Sciences, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. He has a teaching experience of around 20 years, and I would like to tell you about certain books edited by him. One is Interrogating Development, that is a 2010 publication, and another one is School Education, Pluralism and Marginality, a 2012 publication. With this brief introduction, I would like to welcome sir and thank him for being here, and also request him to begin our today's lecture with that. Thank you for coming, sir.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, students. As you recall, in the last lecture, we covered some aspect of intelligence, and today's lecture is in continuation with the last one, because we could not cover some of the important aspect. Just for recapitulation, what did we cover in the last lecture? So we started off with the concept of intelligence, and in that process we introduced some of the theories of intelligence, mainly theories given by Spearman, then by Cuttle, and also by Howard Gardner. And then we talked about certain intelligence tests that are used to measure intelligence, and concepts like intelligence quotient and distribution of intelligence quotient in the human population or student population, and different kind of intelligence tests also. But another aspect, I will begin with a theory, but this theory tells something different about intelligence, and it will be in conformity with, or it will go in sync with the factors that influence intelligence. So, very important theorist who is from Yale University, Robert Sternberg, who is known for his theories and work in the field of intelligence, and recently he has published a book with the title Successful Intelligence. And in Successful Intelligence, he is giving altogether a different understanding about intelligence, and he argues that earlier theories such as Spearman's two-factor theory, Thurston's multi-factor theory, Guilford's theory, then Gardner's theory, all these theory are talking about certain rigid sets of abilities, as if those abilities are either there or they are not there, and they are not taking into considerations the socio-cultural context of the person and also the personal standard of the person. So, in his theory of successful intelligence, he is incorporating these two factors, and which according to him are very important if we want to have a proper understanding of intelligence. What happens? Why did he give this kind of theory? Because Robert Sternberg, who has very extensive experience of research in the area of intelligence, and he has worked with another associate, Grigorenko, in various parts of the country. So, in those studies, what did they find? That what is considered intelligent behavior, or what is considered intelligence in Western society, is not considered intelligence in non-Western society like Africa or Asia or Asian society. So, what he came to realize, that intelligence is also constructed in some way by the socio-cultural environment. What is intelligence and what is not intelligent, it is not person's individual creation or person's completely personal understanding, but this kind of information or understanding is passed on to the individual by the culture, by society, by the elders, and person tries to be intelligent. So, to be intelligent is of course valued quality, it is a quality people want to achieve, but what kind of intelligence one would like to show or demonstrate in one's behavior, it will depend that what is meant by intelligence in socio-cultural context. So, that is very important thing. What happens sometimes that, take example, even in our context nowadays we find getting very high marks in class 10 and class 12 and subsequently also in university exam or competitive exam is a desirable quality, and good result or good marks are considered indications of high level of intelligence. But if we try to examine these kinds of cases very closely and we talk to the students who have scored very high also and who have not been able to score high, and we will realize that some student did not attach much importance to examination scores. They were intelligent, they wanted to study something very important, and their way of study was also different. Some of the students are examination smart, or in psychological testing we call that they have learned the art of taking test. So, if somebody is examination smart, and many schools now they do not focus on imparting real knowledge or deep knowledge or very creative knowledge, but focus of school or teacher, school management is to teach the trick of getting good marks, getting high marks, and how to. So, their preparation for exam is very focused, and it is very selective, and it is according to the type of questions that are asked. So, if too many objective type of questions are asked or very short answer type of question are asked, so teaching would be accordingly. So, there will not be very detailed teaching, because nowadays students are in school level not expected to write essay type of answer. So, depending on the notion of intelligence, but there may be some student who are not interested in scoring very high marks. They know priority in their life and they are interested in having deep knowledge about the subject, they want to enjoy subject, and it is we also know that one student at the school level is required to study various subjects, various disciplines, and a student may not be interested or equally interested in all disciplines. So, what he or she will do? Those who are very much interested and motivated to get high scores, even though they are not interested in all subjects, but with their effort they will try to get, they will study all subjects and they will try to get high marks on that. Whereas, some students who are very sure about one's interest and not very much interested in getting high marks, so will go by his or her own interest. So, will devote maximum time in the subject in which he or she is interested, and as a result of that, preparation of other remaining subjects will not be up to the mark, and it would be very obvious that this student, even though is very intelligent, very creative and very sincere also, but may not get good marks in other subjects. So, overall percentage would be less. And similarly, in a school setting, there is focus on academic intelligence. Academic intelligence, by academic intelligence we mean the intelligence that enables us to do well in the theoretical paper or academic examination. But in school we have extracurricular activities like sports, like arts, like dance and music. In last lecture when I was discussing Gardner's theory, so in his theory all these abilities are part of intelligence. So, musical intelligence is a kind of intelligence, bodily kinesthetic intelligence, which is very important for becoming a sports person or becoming a dancer, is also considered intelligence. Somebody who is very artistic, it is also kind of intelligence. So, even though in some theory it is called intelligence, but traditionally, customarily, no, this is part of extracurricular activities. And good performance in extracurricular activities does not help in improving one's grade or improving one's ranking in the school. And as we know that in Indian setting and in other kind of context also, students' future, students' career depends on that what kind of college one gets admission after school. And admission in the college depends to a great extent on the marks obtained in the class 2 exam. So, these are the context, and this kind of context reinforces one kind of behavior. And what kind of behavior gets reinforced? The behavior that helps student to achieve good marks. So, student knows that how can I get good marks? So, we will try to avoid the distraction, we will try to avoid reading other things which might be interesting, but may not be very useful for getting good marks. We will try to study all subjects equally, even though he or she may be interested in one or two of them. So, these are the decision one makes, but and so final outcome does not necessarily reflect one's intelligence. So, result is basically what kind of decision one has made and what is the priority. So, personal considerations are very important. If somebody does not want to be a good high scorer and does not want to show or demonstrate one's skill or capability in academic activities and is more interested in sports or music or art due to various factors, and so we will find that these kinds of students, even though they may be intelligent, but they will not score very high. Sternberg in his theory called successful intelligence has talked of three kinds of intelligence. One he calls analytical intelligence, second he calls creative intelligence, and third he calls practical intelligence. Now, analytical intelligence are conventionally called, or by intelligence we mean analytical intelligence. Most of the intelligence tests, for example, Raven's progressive matrices, it tests or it measures analytical ability, analytical intelligence. So, if somebody does not have analytical intelligence, person may not do very well. So, his or her score would be low on Raven's progressive matrices. So, conclusion would be this person's IQ or intelligence is low. But according to this theory, this is just one component of successful intelligence. Another component of successful intelligence is the creative intelligence. So, in creative intelligence, person is not supposed to solve some kind of problem or puzzle, but to come out new kinds of ideas, so to do some kind of innovation, and there may not be right or wrong answer. So, in creative kind of pursuit or creative activities can be promoted if there is no right or wrong answer. There is more emphasis on novelty, there is more emphasis on fluency of idea and originality. And third kind of intelligence which Sternberg has taught, practical intelligence. So, to deal with the practical problems of day-to-day life. And here I would like to cite one important study conducted by Sternberg along with his associate in one of the African country. In that society, it was very common that children get affected by some kind of infection. But in that society, it was very common to use certain kind of herb, and that helps children and other members also to disinfect themselves. And this knowledge was transmitted from one generation to another generation, and not very explicitly, because it was part of their common sense. Maybe it was talked every day, it was discussed in form of theory by parents or other members of society. So, Sternberg called it tacit knowledge of the children, that even though they know about it, but they are not very aware and they do not know that they are really using it. What did they found? Did they find that these kinds of children remain very healthy because of taking this herb. But when traditional test of intelligence was administered, and if you recall, Cattell has talked about fluid intelligence and crystallized intelligence. So, fluid intelligence helps us to solve puzzle kind of problem, mental ability. So, students or these children's score on fluid intelligence test was quite low. In fact, there was no correlation between their score on fluid intelligence test and on the practical intelligence. Whereas, when crystallized intelligence test was administered, there was correlation, but this correlation was negative in nature, which means if score on crystallized intelligence is high, then score on practical intelligence would be low, and vice versa. Let us try to understand why did they get this kind of finding. In this society, children, this is very traditional society where modern education is not very well developed system, people are not aware, and they do not attach much value to that. And since they do not attach much value to modern education system, so all those abilities which are required to do well in modern education systems are not taught and therefore are not learned by the children. Whereas, what is very important, that since there is not much modern medical facility also, so most of the people depend on traditional medicine, they depend on herb, and this knowledge is very, very important knowledge. So, just for physical survival, they have to learn this knowledge, and that is why even small children learn it, and without the supervision of elderly member, they take this kind of herb at least once a week, sometimes more than week, and because of this habit, they are able to remain healthy. Sternberg has pointed out that in one of the classical definition of intelligence was that ability to cope with the environment and also to shape environment. So, coping with the environment or adapting to the environment means changing oneself according to the need of the environment or according to the specific characteristics of the environment. So, we can understand this concept by taking one example. If environment we enter is very hot and the country I come from is either cool or cold, so what will I do? So, I will try to use clothes that will protect me from cold environment. I will try to do some kind of physical exercise, so that will also generate heat inside the body, and then I will try to eat those kinds of things which is believed to generate some kind of heat. It is said that some food helps you in a cold kind of environment and you remain healthy. So, this is example of coping or adapting to the environment. But another thing, that all the time we do not cope. We also change environment according to our need or according to our habit or maybe according to our biological needs or biological constituent. So, we shape environment actively. In traditional theory of intelligence, which we have discussed in last lecture, there is no place for changing the environment. What is expected that all kinds of abilities are required which are part of these intelligence tests. So, individual does not have any choice that which kind of ability one would like to develop. Another component that has been discussed as part of definition of intelligence is one's ability to learn. So, learning is also one feature of intelligence. So, learning means many things. For example, if I know about my strength and my weakness, so one example of learning is how to capitalize on my strength and how to correct or how to compensate for my weaknesses. Sometimes we choose those environment, and choosing environment means selecting some kind of job or selecting some kind of task also. So, if I know that I am very good at athletics, but not good at music, so I will take part in the competition of athletics, but not in the competition of music, because I know that in music I am not very good. So, I will not be able to get first position, or I will not be able to excel. But since I am very strong in athletics, so if I take part in athletic competition, I will be able to do well. This is also part of intelligence, because we know that everybody is not endowed with all kinds of abilities and qualities, and everybody is not interested in. Sometimes one may have some kind of abilities, but one may not use, or one may not like some kind of activities. So, there is personal choice, and there are also presence of certain kind of abilities and competencies. And in traditional theories of intelligence, enough attention has not been given to these aspects, whereas Sternberg in his theory of practical intelligence has taken into considerations. So, what did I talk about? Two things, that adapting to the environment and also shaping the environment. But we should also note, keep in our mind, that everybody is not or everybody does not have equal opportunity to cope with the environment or to shape environment. And why? So, there are many factors, and those factors would be many things, like genetic factor, the family, immediate family, and society. And in society, so we will take all those factors in detail, and all these factors influence or affect child's or person's ability to shape environment and to cope with the environment. So, first is the genetic factor, which child inherits from the parent, and sometimes children have some genetic problem, and due to genetic problem their mental ability might be reduced or maybe differently able person. So, this is the role of, and this poses some kind of restriction on the child's capacity to adapt to the environment or to shape the environment. So, adaptation or shaping the environment is not done in a kind of vacuum. It is done in a real practical society where there are some constraints, and those constraints restricts one's choice, and we are discussing how these factors restricts or facilitates also sometimes. The second group of factors that influence coping and shaping is the family factor. Family also differs in terms of its socio-economic status. It differs also in terms of the education it has acquired and its prestige in the society. So, in family, if there is enough economic resources and family is in a privileged situation, so children are encouraged to go to school right from the beginning, right from the childhood. They are encouraged to acquire those abilities which are necessary for doing well in a school situation, and so that's how family influences person's intelligence also. The second is school environment. We also know that nowadays there are all kinds of schools. Some schools are supported by government, some schools are partially supported by government. Then we have private school. Private schools are also of two kinds. Low fee private school which cater to the need of student coming from low socioeconomic background, and then high fee elite kind of private school which cater to the need of students or children coming from high income group. And so these schools differ in terms of the quality of teachers they have, in terms of the physical infrastructure, It also differs in terms of the teachers-student ratio and some other kinds of facilities. And because of the differences in the school in terms of the quality of the teacher, in terms of the physical infrastructure, other facilities, students' intellectual development differ due to school factor. And so, intelligence test, traditional intelligence test is not capable of capturing the difference that is caused due to schooling. It simply assumes that score obtained on intelligence test is indication of intelligence which is inherent, that is another belief. Then other societal influence, and one important thing which I have indirectly discussed is the poverty, but that needs to be discussed in detail. That poverty starts influencing person's ability to cope with the environment and to shape the environment even before birth. Because if children is from very poor family, the mother, when she is pregnant, she may not take very nutritious food which are required for any pregnant lady, and she may not have facility for regular medical checkup and to take some iron capsule and some other kinds of medicines which are helpful for the growth of the fetus. And it is also possible that due to poverty sometimes mother may catch some kind of infection, and that will affect the health of child who is growing in the womb of the mother. So, before birth and after birth also child may not get nutritious kind of food, all the all the injections which provide some kind of immunity to the children may not given to the children. So, children will fall sick quite frequently, and because of lack of healthy food or nutritious food, growth would not be adequate, and because of inadequate growth also the development of brain is not proper, and that affects intellectual ability of the children. Within societal factors, we have another very important factor, that is race and ethnicity. Let us take example of United States of America. So, in United States of America, apart from the white people, there are black also, we call African American, and people from other kind of ethnic background, Latinos, Hispanics and Asian, from Asian origin. And from empirical research, we know that academic achievement of black, especially black, Latinos and Hispanics, are much less as compared to that of the white student. So, one simple explanation would be that children from black children or Hispanic or Latino children, they lack intelligence, or their intelligence level or intellectual ability is less than that of the white children. But now some good research have been conducted in the field of educational psychology, and that try to explain this achievement gap between white student and student coming from other background such as African American, Hispanic and Latinos. Recently, research has been conducted in Stanford University, and a concept has been developed, and this concept is known as stereotype threat. And what is this concept? It is postulated that in all society which is characterized by unequal power relation, inequality in terms of having access to resources, economic resources and prestige, there are stereotypes about groups, and groups which are at disadvantageous position is the target of negative stereotypes. Research also suggests us that children by the age of 6 and 7, they become aware of the stereotypes that are associated with other groups and their own group. So, awareness about stereotype, including awareness about negative stereotype about one's own group is also there in the mind of children. One of the very dominant stereotype about black is that they are intellectually inferior. Children right from the beginning, from the age of 6 or 7, become aware that they are intellectually inferior. And this experiment is very interesting, and it opens our eyes to some very important area about performance in the academic setting, and that also gives us evidence to reconceptualize notion of intelligence. So, getting admission at in Stanford University is one of the very tough thing. Very intelligent students get admission in Stanford University. So, those who are in Stanford University, they have very impeccable academic background. But when experiment was conducted on these students, black student and white student, and the question was given some part of GRE, graduate record examination, but there was difference in the instruction. When it was given to white student, instruction was that it is simple, we are doing a research to know the cognitive processes that is operational in human mind, whereas instruction was slightly changed in the case of black student. It was said that it is test of intellectual ability. So, simple, other part of instructions were same, and because of simple change in instruction that it is test of intellectual ability, it reminded these black children of the negative stereotypes about the black children or black population, that they are intellectually inferior. And because of this, the stereotype got activated in their mind and their performance went down. The researchers who conducted this experiment, they explained this finding in the sense that major part of mental resources or cognitive resources were spent in fighting against the negative stereotypes. So, when black student, they try to solve some kind of question, so they are not only able to concentrate on the question, but they are also distracted by another considerations, that what will happen if I do very bad or poorly in the exam. So, I will be justifying the stereotype or negative stereotype that is associated with my group. So, in the case of black student in American setting, whenever in academic setting and in examination setting they are there, so they have to meet two challenges. One, the intellectual challenge that is posed by the questions, and another is the challenge that is due to activation of negative stereotype. And this factor is generally not taken care of when intelligence tests are administered. We have one theory of intelligence which became controversial. One of the psychologists, Arthur Jensen, who gave a racial theory of intelligence, or whose theory is known as racial theory of intelligence. And after a series of research, Arthur Jensen established that black as a whole are inferior in terms of intellectual ability as than the white population, and the difference in there is the average difference of a score on intelligence test is 15 point. So, that was the finding. But some of the black psychologists, they, after examining the nature of the items that are part of intelligence test, came to realize that the intelligence tests not necessarily reflect some kind of raw intelligence or some kind of universal kind of abilities which are there in human being. And they found that performance on intelligence test is also determined to great extent by the nature of items that are that make intelligence test. So, the influence of intelligence test itself become a factor to influence one's performance on intelligence test. Because of this realization, there was some kind of sensitivity on the part of psychologist or educationist who try to measure intelligence of the student. So, they made other kind of intelligence test, and which is called culture fair test or culture free test. So, by culture fair test, it is said that this kind of test should not discriminate against a student coming from different background. So, this was idea, but even on culture fair test, it was found that performance of black student is lower as compared to that of white student. So, does it mean that black students necessarily are intellectually inferior? So, there are again counter argument, and counter arguments are that this test taking skill itself is a part of Western culture, and white students are very comfortable with test taking because right from the very young age they are exposed to test taking, whereas many children coming from other background where test taking is not very normal thing, it is not very natural thing. So, the very environment where test is administered is a very alienating kind of environment, and children do not feel very comfortable, and because of this feeling of discomfort their performance gets adversely affected, and that may be one of the reason for low performance or low score on intelligence test. Another factor that comes, the gender. It has been found that female or girl child performance is better as compared to boys on some aspect of intelligence like linguistic ability, and there is a stereotype commonsensical understanding that girls are not as good in mathematical ability as boys are. Okay. And there are some empirical evidence also, not only in mathematics, but there is an acronym called STEM, STEM, which stands for science, technology, engineering and medicine. So, in all four disciplines, presence of girls or female are less, or their performance is slightly less as compared to boys. And in the beginning there was very simplistic explanations that females or girls are weak or poor or in these kinds of abilities, but now new understandings are coming, and that explains this phenomenon in a different way, and it explains in the same way that one factor may be stereotype. So, stereotype threat not only operates in the case of black race or other kind of race, but stereotype threat also plays adverse, or it has adverse effect for the female or for the girl student. And there have been some empirical studies that show that because of stereotype threat, performance of girls or female in mathematics or in science is low. So, these are the social factors and not some kind of personal factor or some kind of biological factor that makes female gender weak in science, technology, engineering and medicine. So, how should we understand now the intelligence test, whether we should use it or we should not use it? That is very important question. Some studies that have been conducted, so at international level, Robert Sternberg is the pioneer in the field who has tried to understand meaning of intelligence across culture. And he, along with his associate, found that different culture has different meaning. In India also, few years back, very important study was conducted by Professor Ashok Srivastava and Professor Grishwar Mishra, and they published a book also, and name of the book is Rethinking Intelligence. An argument in Sternberg's research and the research done by Professor Srivastava and Professor Mishra is that in different culture or in subcultural group, meaning of intelligence is different. So, by intelligence we do not mean same thing in different culture. For example, if a student is very assertive and tries to show one's intelligence or tries to show one's capability or one's performance or one's smartness and tries to stand out, it is a very desirable characteristics in American culture, in Western culture. So, individualism, ideology of individualism is very important, that you try to show your individuality, you try to show your individual talent, individual capability. Whereas, in East Asian culture, for example, Japanese culture or Chinese culture, because of influence of Confucianism, there is influence of social harmony. So, it is not desirable on the part of student in Japanese culture to show one's capability or to show one's talent if it disturbs social harmony, it disturbs people who are other people who are there. This is just one example. In Indian context, also in different region, different part of India, although we call Indian culture, but being such a large, vast country, India has many subcultures also, and in different subcultures, different kinds of norms are there, and these norms define what is desirable behavior and what is not so desirable behavior. And culture in any society acts as a kind of teacher on every individual. So, culture gives us a norm, and we all try to, and culture also gives us a framework to know what is good and what is bad. So, this is one of the tendency of human being, that human being tries to be nice in one's own eyes and in others' eyes also. But interpretation of what is good, what is the meaning of being nice and what is the meaning of not being nice is provided by the culture. And since culture in terms of its interpretive framework, so meaning of nicety and meaning of not being nice also differs. And because of cultural differences, students or people develop different capabilities or different kind of abilities. So, a good intelligence test should be culturally sensitive rather than trying to pretend that it is culture fair, because it is almost practically impossible. One can of course reduce the influence of culture on test, but it is not possible to have a test which is 100% culturally fair. So, one of the good strategy would be to make a test which is culturally sensitive. So, all the items should be from the culture. Those who have to respond to the questions, they should be very comfortable with the items, words and phrases should not be alien, should not be from different culture. Mostly intelligence tests have been developed in other countries, and in our country also some of the psychologists try to make Indian version of intelligence tests, but their framework is very much guided by their Western counterpart. So, some of the words or some of the phrases are influenced by Western thinking. So, some of the students who are not comfortable with this kind of languages, they are not able to do well. So, we should try to make a culturally sensitive test, but we should also know that what is the purpose. So, in American context, intelligence means simply an ability that helps person to do well in academics. But in other kind of culture, intelligence is not only an ability that helps person to do well in academic setting or in education, but intelligence also helps person to do very well in practical life and in social life. So, social competence, practical competence, cultural competence are very important thing, or familial concern. So, in some society, if family is very important institution, and right from the beginning child is taught to respect the institution of family and also to contribute to the maintenance of family value and institution of family. So, all those capabilities which are required for the maintenance of family value or for the preservation of institution of family would be developed in the child, and that would be there. So, a good intelligence test should try to measure all these abilities rather than focusing on only academic competence or what we call analytical competence. Another research has come and which informs us that there are two kinds of thinking, and one is called analytical thinking and another is called holistic thinking. So, analytical thinking is a thinking in which a person focuses on part and person tries to disembed part from its context and follows and deductive reasoning, whereas holistic thinking is a thinking where entire context is taken into account while thinking. So, there is no effort on the part of thinker to disembed the part from its context, and that is how it is holistic. And holistic thinking and analytical thinkings also correlate with the kind of culture one comes from, and it has been found that there is predominance of analytical thinking in the culture where there is ideology of individualism. So, in individualistic culture there is emphasis on analytical thinking, whereas in collectivist culture there is emphasis on holistic thinking. Another important thing about individualistic culture and collectivist culture is that in individualistic culture the concept of self is very autonomous, that self is very separate, it is autonomous, and all activities that self does is due to self's own capability, whereas in collectivist culture concept of self is interdependent, that self is not different from its surrounding, self is not different from its context. So, self can be, or meaning of self derives from its context also, and in this kind of culture holistic thinking is promoted. So, intelligence test, traditional intelligence test basically privileges analytical thinking and not holistic thinking. So, if a traditional intelligence test where emphasis is on analytical thinking is administered on children or student coming from a collectivist background, so they are put at disadvantageous position. So, I think I would like to conclude this lecture by saying that while making intelligence test, we should take into considerations all the recent research, especially researches that emphasize on cultural differences in terms of thinking pattern, capability and concept of self, and also the meaning of intelligence, and scores on intelligence tests should be interpreted appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for covering the topic in a very elaborate and also in an extremely lucid manner, and we would like thanks, sir, for being here today, and also thank our viewers. Thank you and have a wonderful day.